Welcome back to our Esalen series. This is number 9 in our series this evening. And in this lesson tonight, you're going to need two things. The first is, of course, your mat for lying down. And the second thing is a chair. And I'm looking for a chair. If you look in the screen, you'll see Madeline's I'll try to highlight this here, spotlight it for everyone. She has Vanna here giving us her rendition of a chair. And there'll be times when we'll be sitting in it, but we'll be doing some other things with that. So you need some type of chair. So we'll need those two things as you start to prepare for this evening. And while you do that, I'll go ahead and introduce the lesson. Obviously, you see over my right shoulder here, our familiar little stick figure. I did not do well in art. That's not my forte, but you get the image. We're coming back to, and hopefully you've been able to experience that we really haven't left these 5 cardinal lines of the human structure. They were the initial lesson 1 in our series and also in Moshe Feldenkrais's series. And they're very important. And tonight we're going to use this lesson to really awaken, I think, one of the most basic and fundamental relationships that we have in our body. And that is probably the most unconscious to us. And that has to do with this relationship between our center of mass and our base of support. So if you remember, we have our little pelvis here, and we had something that we've been mapping out in the center of the pelvis called the gluteal cleft. Now, the gluteal cleft is that fancy term for your buttock crack. All right. So when we drop a line down from the buttock crack all the way down to the floor, that line can signify and help you understand where your center of mass is, because the center of mass is held within the pelvic cavity. You can't touch it. You can only experience it. And when you have a really, I want to say, I want to use the word flexible, but the real qualitative word is a responsive. When your center of mass can be very responsive to what's happening with your base of support, it does wonders for not just your balance, right? It does wonders for all function. And tonight's lesson is so helpful. This is probably the number 1 lesson that I keep doing over and over and over again to find improvement. About a year and a half ago, I had an unexpected total hip. And although I didn't have pain, I was not able to get back to this really quality, smooth, functional experience of my daily activities that I really liked. And I just didn't, my confidence didn't feel good. But this lesson and how I modified it, because I couldn't do it in its original form, and we're going to do it with my modifications, because I want to make this available to not just seniors or people who have had orthopedic problems or neurological problems or want to get better at their balance. This lesson is so sweet in really giving us this relationship to midline and being able to use the center of mass in such a way that the vertical line can be flexible enough to make some changes. So we're going to come to standing first. As you know, we always do some type of reference. So you're standing with your feet in the most comfortable position. You get to decide on the width of the feet. And so just notice where your arms hang, where your shoulder blades are resting. how you placed your feet, the width of your feet. Now, something we often do in our gait class is that we scan the footprint. Which footprint, your right footprint or your left footprint, which feels more heavier or deeper into the ground? Notice where you lean more in that footprint that's deeper into the ground. Are you more into the ball of the foot, or are you more toward the toes? Are you more toward the arch or the bottom of the heel? This footprint and where you're leaning, where you're taking that weight, is a helpful indication of where your center of mass is being displaced over. Yeah. So you want to know how your pelvis and your center of mass is organized. Your weightedness into your base of support lets you know, so that even though you have this beautiful distance or shoulder width apart between your feet, the midline that the nervous system is reading, the midline where the center of mass is held between the 2 points of stability, that weightedness is where the center of mass really is. So that's where you would drop that line down to the floor. Okay. Now, from there, what I'd like you to do, I'd like you just to bend over and bring your hands to the ground, let your knees bend, and just bring your hands to the ground. Almost like a little squat, isn't it? Mhm. Now, I want you to assess your capacity to lift one foot from the floor and then the other foot from the floor. I know, and you're thinking, are you kidding me, Carol? I can't even get my feet up off the floor. If you can't, that's fine. It's just an assessment. No worry. All right. Okay. You're just trying to figure out what you got there. All right. And bring yourself back up to standing. Good. Now, I want you to come closer to the screen, because now I'm going to show you how we're going to use our chair tonight. It's really awesome. So here you see, I'm going to stand over here. Here you see the square base of the chair, and you're going to hold on to the sides of the chair. All right. So it's not putting your palm on the chair. It's really more on the sides, if that's comfortable for you. If you're having thumb issues, then you might want to go palm. That will work too. But I'm trying to avoid this excessive load through here for right now. I'm trying to let the load be translated up the arm. And that's why we're going to hold on to the side. Okay. Now, you notice that as you bend over, we're going to recall that you have your arm cardinal lines and your leg cardinal lines. They're not sticks. The ends of those lines are balls, right? The lollipops that can move, all right? And you recall that this vertical cardinal line, even though it's in the horizontal versus the vertical, when it's in the horizontal, it still has those round little tires, those round little sponges in between the vertebra that allow it to have mobility through it. All right. So you can start to see that when you put your hands on the chair, it's going to displace this pelvis, right? And here is that center of mass. The center of mass is going to move behind your heels. This is normal, all right? This is normal. And you're going to be tracking your center of mass through this, because as we awaken your ability to track the center of your mass, the gluteal cleft, it's going to change these 4 points of stability. And as it changes these 4 points of stability, it gives the system, the nervous system, a chance to experience when we lose a support and we go down to 3. Or what if we go down to only 2 points of support, 2 points of stability? Can we still maintain not just our balance, but maybe there's a certain level of function that can emerge here? The other thing about using the stool or using the chair is that this really takes us back to the day in that neural developmental sequence as a little one. All right. So we're going back to kids, right? So we're going to have fun with this. We're going to have fun with this one. All right. So come to take your place on your chair. And as you do that, I'm going to start to spotlight, several of us so that we can just have some images. And you can say, there we go. And I'll just randomly choose some. Awesome. Fantastic. Okay. So first of all, you just put your hands on your chair. And I want you to begin to take that gluteal cleft and bring that gluteal cleft behind your heels. So you're going to keep your feet where they're at. And throughout the lesson, you're going to find where is the best place for my feet and my hands so that my chair doesn't move, obviously. So you bring your gluteal cleft back and then return it. And as you bring it back past the heels, you start to notice that the hands get more light, don't they? It's almost as though that the hands get light as the mass moves back. And if you move the mass forward toward the chair, then feel where the hands start to take their weight. You begin to feel the body weight going through the arms, through the shoulder girdle. Good. Now, I want you to find that location of your center of mass or your gluteal cleft where there's equal weight bearing on all 4 points. Now, this is going to change. So a lot of times people start to move their hands back to find it rather than move their mass back. Notice if you did that. So it's okay to move both hands and feet. I'm okay with that. But notice how the mass changes the 4 points of stability. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to lift one foot from the ground and then you put it back down. And then you, several times, you lift it up and you put it back down. And you get a sense that it changes the pressure across the hands. Agree? All right. Now, can you direct your attention to the foot that's lifting to the ground? Let the knee is lifting too, obviously, but let the knee come more towards the chest as though that it's coming closer to the chair. And most of us have a tendency when we do this to really bend the knee so that the foot hangs behind. So what I'd like you to do is I want you to unhinge that knee so that as you bring it closer to the chair, it's the shin bone that comes close to the chair. So this means that you're going to have to, if your hands are at the base of your chair, then you're going to have to rearrange your hands, right? You're going to have to bring your hands maybe a little closer to the midpoint of the chair or the back of the chair. All right. Now let's pause for a moment and let's come to standing. Let you come up in any way you like. All right, sounds simple enough, doesn't it? We're just going to do the same thing again. Here we go. We're going to stand in front of the chair. Come close to the chair. Don't put your hands down yet. Don't put your hands down yet. Stand tall. Move into that chair. Move closer to that chair. All right. Now, begin to take your gluteal cleft back behind your heels as you lower your hands to the chair. Yes, that's it. That's a different quality of going down, isn't it? The knees can soften. They don't have to stay straight. The hands just find a natural place. And to come up from there, if you bring your gluteal cleft forward, right? I'm sorry. If you bring your gluteal cleft just a little further back, your hands will get light and your hands can come up out of the chair. And then all of a sudden, bring your gluteal cleft forward and your hands behind your hips, and you're very tall. Now, coming back down to the chair, take your cleft behind the heels, let the hands find their home position on that chair. Knees will soften. Adjust the gluteal cleft so that you have 4 points of stability. 2 arms, 2 legs. Now, lift the foot. It doesn't matter which foot you choose. Lift the foot from the floor once again, and then put it down. Lift it 3, maybe 4 times, and really get a sense of the weight shift that comes across the hands and the standing leg. One hand has a little bit more availability to press down, has more of a handprint as that knee, that shin bone is coming toward the base of the chair. And a couple of times, let's try the other knee, the foot lifting from the ground and that knee coming toward the chair. Good. So be a moment, right, when you can really sense which hand is more free and which hand is heavy. Now, let that go. Bring yourself to standing, but draw your cleft back. Hands get light. You stand up. The cleft moves towards the chair and the hands come behind. And really feel yourself take the height of your torso. Body really extending. And moving your gluteal cleft back, allowing the hands to find their place on the chair again. Adjusting the cleft to find the 4 points of stability. Nice. Maintain that 4 points of stability, okay? So the cleft can move side to side, but it's not so much going to move forward and back. So I want you to begin now to lift one hand from the chair and put it back down. Doesn't have to lift high, just enough to have a piece of paper underneath it. You don't even have to bend the elbow, right? You just withdraw, put it down, withdraw, put it down. Feel like the teeter-totter as you withdraw the left hand, the right hand goes down, or if you've chosen to withdraw the right hand, the left hand goes down. Very much a teeter-totter. Good. Okay. And then let that go. Bring yourself to standing in that unique way of feeling the cleft, feeling the mass. Bring the hands back to be light, and then the mass moving forward to bring the hands behind the hips and the torso long in front. allowing you to take a different footprint image. Now, come to sit on the chair a moment. Use the chair for sitting. Taking a moment to not just rest the joints or the effort, but a moment of neural integration, a moment of sensing this odd way of being familiar with the center of mass moving behind your heels, how that's needed so often when we load the dishes in the dishwasher or change the trash can liner, or soon passing out Halloween candy if that is something you do in your neighborhood. There's this bending forward, and we typically tend to use our vertical cardinal line very poorly and transfer that dysfunction. All right, come to standing again, facing your chair, and have a little distance between your shin bones and the chair. Something, again, that's comfortable so that you're not overextending or overreaching. Mhm. And begin to let the gluteal cleft move past the heels. Find that place that stacks your hands. Adjust the cleft so you have 4 points. Good. Now, begin to lift the right foot from the ground and bring it in the direction of the base of the chair. And then lower it back. We're not going to climb on the chair. We're just using the front of the chair as a reference point for your eyes to look at your knee and see the chair. And can you begin to get a sense that when the foot lifts, how the one hand gets lighter? Is it the left hand? You might, as the knee moves towards the base of the chair, can the left hand start to lift a little bit from the chair? Is that your preference? It doesn't have to touch the chair, of course. But you know what? There's some people that, and some movements that we do, that the left hand stays stable while the right, that's it, while the right knee is coming forward, the right hand lifts. You want to really get a sense of what your balance is like. Lifting the same leg and same side hand is a very different experience than it is lifting the oppositional diagonal, isn't it? Uh-huh. All right. Now, let that go. Bring yourself to stand to the upright. You know how to do it. And finish with, yes, finish that last bit of the standing posture. And then again, not just mechanically, really sense the gluteal cleft carrying behind the heels that allows you to tip down and bring the torso in the hands. That's it. Good. And not just mechanically, find how beautiful, that's beautiful. Find, adjust the mass, your center of your gluteal cleft, 4 points of contact. And now begin to lift the left foot from the ground, heading in the direction shin bone toward the base of the chair. And for some of you here, it may even be more available to come more toward the center of the chair, as though that the shin bone is reaching the center of the chair, kind of somewhere passing like along with the navel, the belly button. Mhm. Good. And then when could the right hand also start to lift? So we have the left foot lifting and the right hand lifting. What's that diagonal of support? Moving from 4 points of stability to 2. Mhm. All right. And now really sense it. Come to the upright, letting that cleft move back. Do you really need to? How much of a bend in your knees do you need? That's right. Some people go down in order to come up. The pelvis sinks down. It's a different lesson. This one is about allowing the hip joints to find their extension. Now, come to sit for a moment. So in that last exploration, you got a taste of how the shin bone, some place of the shin bone starts to come to touch the front of the chair. And we're going to use the front of the chair and your shin and the outsides of that lower leg. So you touch the outside touch your shin bone for me. Let me just see where you think yeah, yeah. So if that's your shin bone, we're going to stay right under the kneecap. And that's better. And so then if you bring your hands along the sides of your lower leg, of the lower leg, you'll still be at the shin level. So we're not sliding down. So we put our hands, I'll redirect you again. So our hands are over our kneecaps. Slide down the kneecaps a little bit to the front of the shin. Beautiful. Allow the hands to slide along the outside of each leg. So it's like you were making a circle. That's right. So in that area right there is going to be touching the front of the chair back very soon. It's a very unusual kind of sensation. You think, seriously, Carol. Mm-hmm. All right. Now bring yourself to standing. All right. And bring yourself this time again to the chair, hands to the chair. You know how to do it. Let your hands be a little bit more toward the mid point of the chair. That's good. Mhm. And so let's all do this together. We're going to bring our right shin in the direction of the chair, front of the chair. And I want you to start to let the shin actually touch the chair. Let it touch the chair and let it slide to the left as though that it could move to the end of the chair. Good. And then start to come back. Good. And then put it down on the ground. And we're going to try that several times. So you can adjust now this distance from your feet to that chair. And you can start to get a sense that as the shin sweeps across to the left, it takes the pelvis to the left. It takes the belly button to the left. And the foot of the standing leg has to soften a little. The knee softens. Maybe even the foot turns a little bit. You definitely have that sense that your right hand is working for you. Good. And then the next time you come to the middle, bring yourself upright. And then bring your hands back to the chair again. And this time, let's bring the left shin to the front of the chair, the middle of the chair, and start to stroke it across that chair front, moving to the corner, to the base of the chair, sensing the availability of the pelvis to move, the pubic bone, the belly button, turning in the direction of the right. Feeling how you have your left arm available to help you with that motion. Yes. Let the eyes look in the direction to that floor behind you. Is that helpful? That allows you to take the shin over. And if you continue on with the shin, maybe as you're looking with the eyes, the side of that shin can start to come along the base of that chair. That's right. And then the next time you come to the middle, go ahead and stand up, retract the cleft, finish the powerful extension of standing. Yes. Now let that go and come to lie on your back for a moment. And you begin to appreciate this floor, right? From after doing lessons that involve these 4 points of stability and the tracking of the mass and feeling the sensation of the teeter-totter between the hands. It just feels the right thing, the supportive thing to lie. And while you're there, you can sense those 5 cardinal lines, the 2 legs, the 2 arms, that vertical cardinal line. That vertical cardinal line that actually is the midline of you, but one that is a movable, mobile midline, a responsive midline that allows the stacking of that vertical line over the pelvis, which aligns the base of support, that relationship between the three. Now, this next level of movement's very similar to what we did in our previous movement, but there is another level of difficulty coming up. All right. So we're going to pace ourselves as you do this. The first go may seem very interesting, very weird, uncomfortable, but it shouldn't feel painful. There's the difference. There's not about any sharp pain anywhere, but it will feel very different. Now, bring yourself to standing again. Organize yourself in front of the chair. And prepare yourself to bend over and bring your hands to the chair, but you know what this involves now, right? Taking the base of support back behind the heels, allowing, that's it, allowing you to find that perfect spot for your hands. The change in the cleft a little forward. So we have clearly 4 points of stability. This would be the same as if you were on your hands and knees, wouldn't it? Can you imagine that? We've just raised the floor. Now, if you look over to your right, you see your right hand and your right foot, they make a gap, don't they? The chair continues on with your right hand, but it's kind of made a little gap over there. So this time, as we bring the left knee towards the center of the chair and our shin towards the center of the chair, we let the left foot hang down, and I want you to sweep that shin across the front of the chair as though that the foot could extend out, as like you were going to kick a ball and extend out through the gap on the right. And so you want your leg to be on the outside of the chair leg. So it's like literally out there in space. And as you allow the shin to move across, and then come back, as though that you're going to sweep it across. And when can you start to get a hint that your left tush, your left hip can start to come a little bit closer to the chair, as though that you would want to sit on your left side? You find that you have to move your hands. Can you keep your hands there? And instead of looking to the right, can you look and follow your foot? Follow the foot that moves through the gap between, there you go. And feel how the elbows start to soften. They're stable, but they're able to soften enough so that it can have a soft landing with that pelvis, if you choose to. Good. And then if you're coming out of that, then you're going to have to use the left hand to help press you out and finish bringing you back to the beginning. And in fact, the next time you find yourself with that shin towards the center of the chair, I want you to put the foot back on the ground, and I want you to come to standing. Finish that stance. And now actually sit in the chair for a moment, just giving yourself 30 seconds to 1 minute of recovery. Now, in order to sweep the leg through and allow the pelvis to come down, that takes a good deal of strength. And this muscle strength is important. And in fact, it's one of the things that actually start to disappear as we get older. Sometimes I think it's even far worse than osteoporosis is sarcopenia. This is a fancy term for the muscle just starts losing its mass and we get insidious weakness. This movement is so potent in your ability to get up off the floor. Now, if you find that you are having any issues with your hands or your wrist, if you just stroke your hands from your forearms down through your hand as though one hand pushing and wiping away any of that tension through the fingers. That's a nice way to restart again. Both men and women have a problem with weakness. There's hormonal changes that go on. That's it. All right. So bring yourself to standing again. Organize yourself in front of your chair and bring your hands to the chair in that sweet way of tracking your center of mass behind the heels that find that best place that allow you to stack up. That's right. Now, let's start to bring the other knee towards the chair. Mhm. And as it starts to sweep across using the chair as a reference. So you might have to readjust the standing leg. You might have to readjust the arms. We're not used to being able to find this kind of counter rotation that takes place. Good. And as you look at that right foot, see how that right foot sneaks past the chair out into the room. You can see it. You can even wave that foot up and down, right? Wave it up and down. That's enough just to find out how to get the leg across the midline and allowing your center of mass to be able to shift to lower. That's right. And when it's available to you, can you start to soften the elbows in such a way that they have the strength to lower you down as though that right hip, that right back pocket can start to come and land somewhere near that right hand. And then, of course, to get back up, you really find that it is the right hand that says, I have you, I can push you up. And if you lower your head down as though to look at your feet, somehow it lightens the load to overcome gravity to get you back up. That's it. That's becoming more smooth, more available to people. Feel how the torso starts to find its rotation through the thoracic spine in such a way that hasn't been available. Good. And then the next time you find yourself standing, bring your foot back to the ground, stand upright, glide the power of the pubic bone forward, the hips naturally finding the activation of hip extension. And you might just notice that your footprint, that initial footprint, something might be changing there, not just from side to side, but also from front to back. Good. Now, sit back in the chair, rest for a moment. I find myself doing this last movement as my reference tests throughout the day, especially before I go out and walking the dog and on uneven territory, gravel, grass. Now, for some of you, the lesson can end right here and it would be just fine. And if you're up for a pleasurable exertion, then join me for what's next. And it should be pleasurable. All right. Because now that you know the motion of how this lowering of the pelvis to one side, allowing the foot to move through the gap that the arm and leg make, you can change the level of difficulty by changing the speed. The speed at which the leg moves across the midline. Now, it is not necessary that you go fast, all right? It was just fine to repeat the last thing that we did. But for those of you who want to continue, come to standing. And now you have a real different appreciation of bringing your hands to the chair. Take your cleft back. There you go. Adjust that center of mass so that you definitely are standing on 4 points, just like you would be on hands and knees. And now as you can choose whichever one you want to bring forward first. Bring the knee towards the chair, across the chair, through the gap, the foot through the gap, and lower the pelvis down toward the chair. And then come up. Just refresh yourself. There's one direction that feels more doable. See if it's that right one moving through the gap and the right hip moving through the chair, or is it the left one moving? Which one is more doable? Because you're going to start with a side that's more doable. So with that side that's more doable, what I want you to do is bring that foot through the gap, bring the chair, bring your buttock to the chair, sit on the chair, and then quickly come up. And as you come up, spring. How do you use the standing leg to get you back up? We often forget the standing leg has power in it, that it could actually almost like hop you back up. So there you go. It's not just the arm, that presses down, that gets you up, but that leg, that standing leg, find the power in that leg that allows you to do that. Watch that leg, see that foot. And then maybe this time as you pop back up, maybe allow yourself to go the other direction. So bring that other knee up towards the chair and see if that's easier now. And then as you come back up, use that popping back up of the straightening of the standing leg. That standing leg, there's this teeter-totter, that diagonal of the hand and the leg that allows you to come back up. And then maybe once or twice go from the right side to the left side. There you go. Watching the foot. Watching the foot. See your eyes, track that foot, boom, and come back up. Good. And boom, come back up. Good. Let it go. Bring yourself to standing tall. Has new meaning now. Standing tall, about bringing that center of mass underneath you. And it can do so without letting the weight shift and fall forward into the balls of the feet. Now, wipe away any excessive tension in your arms. Mhm. And notice for yourself if your footprints, did the depth of the footprint change? You can interpret that with confidence that your center of mass is becoming more equilibrated, finding more of its true center between the base of support of 2 feet, rather than being held off to one side. Now, allow yourself to bend down, put your hands on the floor, let your knees, your hips, your ankles bend. The knees can be wide. Now, lift. Feel how you have 4 bases of support. You can either have your palms on the floor, or I like to put my fist on the floor. That's more available to me. And then lift one foot from the floor and lift the other foot from the floor. Feel how to lift the foot. You literally have to bring that gluteal cleft over to the standing leg, don't you? Feel that shift. That's right. Good. Now let that go. Bring yourself to standing. Let your breath return. And take a walk around. Take a walk around your space and see if you can get a sense of how your gluteal cleft actually moves from side to side. It begins to stack up over the foot, because the stacking up over the foot is what allows the freedom of you to be on one point of stability. One point of stability. That's right. So you can move from 4. This lesson moves you from 4 points of stability, 3 points of stability, 2 points of stability, 1 point of stability. It's called walking. Good. Now, let that go and bring yourself back to our room. Let yourself sit on the chair. As you repeat this movement, even just parts of it, you will find that it becomes easier and easier to do. You become more organized along that vertical cardinal line, so that it will enable you to actually do this lesson from hands and feet position, hands on the floor. That's its original lesson, was the hands and feet on the floor. It almost looks like you're in the position of what's called a bear crawl. But this makes it much more available for people who have had a history of accidents or traumas. And over the years, your nervous system has been so good to you to reorganize its relationship to your base of support and your center of gravity, always adjusting you so that you can be upright and move against gravity. So this is one way to start to really clear the slate from very old levels of accommodation. This is one way that you can really enhance the quality of uprightness without straining a scoliotic pattern, right? Can you start to get a sense of how this might be really important in which leg that moves across? Which part of the pelvis starts to come down? Very good. All right. Good. That's going to bring our lesson to a close. And what we'll do is we have some time that we always like to invite awareness, shares, comments, ahas, maybe even struggles, right? Because this lesson has levels of difficulty. As we start to use those 5 cardinal lines, we manipulate the 5 cardinal lines. Excuse me, that's the poor choice. We use the 5 cardinal lines. Nope, sorry, I'm going to start again. We use the 4 cardinal lines, the arms and the legs, to manipulate the vertical cardinal line, to restore the relationship of that vertical cardinal line that says, okay, we've got something else here available to us. And you'll never change the trash can liner again without thinking of that gluteal cleft. Flushing the toilet is another one. Spitting out with toothpaste is another one. Get used to having the mass move back to signal the forwardness. I just can't begin to tell you how it may save your life one day and you don't fall on your head. Okay. All right. If you have a question or comment, down in the lower right-hand corner, there are the reactions. And if you press on that, you're able to raise your hand. Yes, Miss Madeline.
Hello. I'm so glad you mentioned the vertical line at the end, because going to the left was much easier for me. And going to the right, I realized it's somewhere in the middle of my back that I'm getting stuck. Somewhere in the middle of my back, which relates to something you said last week about the eyes. I may write to you about this in an email, if I may. Yeah. Sure. It's so interesting that that's when the light bulb went off. It's like, wait a minute, the problem I'm having going to the right is somewhere in the middle of my back. So thank you. That was very interesting. I've just gotten off the phone with a friend who fell on her face and went to a physical therapist or to a doctor who said, you've got to strengthen the muscles of your leg. That was and hearing you say that that's an important component of staying upright is good. But I said, well, I think there's a little more to it than that, but okay, that's a good start.
It is a good start. You're absolutely right. But can you get a sense of what the power of the brilliance of Dr. Feldenkrais was? His ability, and he didn't talk about center mass. In that lesson, he just wants you to get your leg through. He just wants you to get your leg through this gap here and lower it down. But what happens is, if you can get this read on how that mass moves back, then you're not going to fall forward. It's a reaction, a reflex that will say, oh, I've got to go back if I'm falling. But if the nervous system doesn't sense that it can move either direction or side to side, it won't go. You may have it available. You think you may have it available, but if it's not, you won't go. And we have just a little time. If I could just give you a little hint for your right rotation. All right. So when you have your hands on and you begin to make sure I'm saying this right for you, it's taking your left leg through the gap on the right.
Yeah, I was able to do that. And then I kind of got stuck. So, and I could feel, I have this place in the middle of my back. I think many people do. That's really a problem. It's a persistent problem. And I felt that the torso was just not cooperating. I got the leg through. I was looking at it with my eyes. I could feel my hand moving, rotate. And then suddenly I was able to do it, but it wasn't pretty.
It wasn't pretty. And when something doesn't feel pretty, feel pretty, right? There's a strain. It's kind of like the eyes. They're skipping over something. So here's a strategy. All right. is where the hands hold on, the leg, the shin bone starts to go through, and you'll get to a point where you can start to feel that that's the nearing the end of my ability. And then it's almost as though that you could rest the shin, right? The shin off to the side, off the midline to the right, and then begin to lift, alternate the hand. Lift one, then the other. Lift one, then the other of the hand. As you hold steady, that left shin bone to the right, it's resting on the chair back. Or excuse me, not the chair back, but the front of the chair. Can you start to see it? So
Yeah.
it's like you become the availability of just lightening the load of one hand to the other will give you this sweet little articulation. And then it's like, okay, then the cooperation will be found somewhere in the front, and it might be possible. I don't know.
I'm going to try that. I like it. It sounds good.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, Mila. Uh-huh.
Thank you for an amazing lesson, Carol. If I were to practice just one part, and if I did the last, I can just do the last part, right? Moving to one side and sitting, and that will be good practice. I wonder if in the while you were recording the session, you're able to pin somebody who was doing it the right way, just so I know.
Absolutely. You'll be able to see some things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. And
Thank
indeed.
you.
Yeah. And there is, like Madeline said, there's a way of looking pretty when you do something like that. And I pinned Heather. And Heather, you were able to allow the leg to move across and bring yourself. Heather and Wendy, you're able to allow it to move across. And you can see this kind of almost cat-like motion of your shoulder girdle going in the opposite of your pelvic girdle. So to improve the qualitative of the moment, they were able to do the quick hop and the quick hop. So that's a higher level of difficulty. But just even sweeping and really extending the leg out to the side is of extraordinary value. Extraordinary value. Without straining your knees, right? We don't want you to strain your knees, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But track your cleft. You know, as Leslie said last time, you know, the center of mass, that gluteal cleft, it's really the center of your ass that we're talking about that's moving, you know, being able to lower and come down. One of my ladies in my balance class, she named it that. She always thought I was saying ass instead of mass, because she had a hard time hearing. So I said, well, you're absolutely right. It truly is.
Thank you, Carol.
Anyone else want to make a comment? Yes, Miss Heather.
Hi. Yeah, I didn't think that there was going to be any smoothness at all, just because of feeling quite stiff. And you're saying to put the head down was the ticket for me, and that just allowed it all. And I'm thrilled that this could be one that could help the muscular area. I'm torqued, and my I'm weak here, and I'm clenched there, and it's I've just recently become aware of it, and I'm doing some things for it, but this is sweet, you know, like this isn't exercise, you know, it yeah. So am
Mhm.
really grateful for it. And and thank you for saying that this is your go-to place before you go out to walk in, particularly, maybe just not the straight sidewalk, to do that. So that's a real gift for me. Thank you so much.
Mhm. You bet, you bet. And I do use this as a quote, strength training. I like to do strength training in functional, in a functional pattern. And this is getting up off the floor. I'm on the floor constantly with the kiddos, and being able to see my hands and remember my cleft. I was just astounded how well I can get off the floor now.
Wow.
I'm just,
Fabulous.
so it takes consciousness, right? These lessons are about awakening us to ourselves, our image. We're trying to call back the image of who we are to a full blossom so that it becomes spontaneous in our function. And we feel playful. We feel like
Yes.
it feels good. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm going to do that. Can you imagine? That's better than doing leaning against the counter and doing this motion, right? Bringing your chest. It's a good one, right? We lower ourselves to the ground, but imagine being able to coordinate this lowering and extending at the same time and eventually, I hope for each one of you, you feel this power that explodes out of that standing leg that allows you to come right back up. That's where you want to go. That's going to stop the unfortunate place that Madeline's friend went.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Miss Tony?
Yeah, that was really aerobic. That really got my heart rate up. May I ask, how far along were you in your recovery before you could perform this?
Yes, almost a year and 3 months. Now, I had rough time. I had an anterior hip replacement, and because of how they do hip replacements, I don't know if you know, the short version is they take the hip and when they pull it out and they make the stem longer, it moves out in this direction, but it also moves down. So they're literally taking the ball out and down. And so it sits out further and down. Well, this just happens to pull on something that's connected to my back, which is a source of problem for me. So what happens is I didn't have any pain from the hip joint. I had pain and actually a paralysis just from being stretched. The nerve was stretched, the muscle was stretched of the psoas, and it took me such a long time. Now, nobody, I even taught a gait class and most people didn't know that I had a problem, right? And I made a video saying, listen, I had a hip replacement. Let me tell you what goes on here. And nobody would know, but it's that inner confidence, kind of like what Heather was saying. It's like, wow, that felt good. I was walking the dog today and I thought, my gosh, I've got hip extension back again. I really feel good. I'm back. I've got me back again. So it took me a while to get to that. This lesson is also a higher level of rolling. When people can't roll very well, they have a difficult time doing this lesson. They can't distinguish between lower body and upper body rolling. So,
Okay, thank you. I loved it.
yeah, good. Me too. All right. Now, you know what? I didn't have a name for this lesson. It's lesson number 4 in the original lesson Esalen series. It's called 4 Points of Stability, I believe is the name of it. Lesson number 4 in Esalen. 4 cardinal. Listen to that. He does not mix words. 4 cardinal lines, meaning those are primary. And he calls that the 4 cardinal points of support, sitting right and sitting left. And that just totally makes sense. And I think I may use this. I can't use the same name because we have to make up our own name. It's just these copyright laws. So if you have a new name for that, let me know. So yes, Madeline?
No, I just wanted to ask you, this is the one where you end up swinging your legs from one side to the other and sitting. Is that correct? You end up sitting and swinging your legs from one side to the other eventually? Well, I have the book right here. I'll look at it.
Yeah. So what happens is that you're in your hands and on your feet. Those are the only 4 points of stability. And so as you swing your leg across, you're still on hand, foot as the pelvis starts to sit like to the right. And then it comes back. And it takes a tremendous amount of upper body strength to bring yourself and push yourself up off the floor. All right. But it is very similar to like getting up from a spiral from the floor. Right. And just a qualitative note that if it feels like it's strained and unpleasant, what's happening there is that either the direction you need to go is the other direction. You use the direction of ease, more support, more availability. All right. Because you can get stuck in moving down below because you don't have the girdle movement, right? This could be the problem. And that's why it would be important, like what we did with Madeline, to bring the leg across and then teeter-totter the hands. Lift, 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 lift while you're standing on that leg. And maybe allowing some pressure to go through the left knee in Madeline's case so that she can have 3 points of stability at all time, 2 in the leg, one's a knee, one's a foot, and then one's a hand, and then the opposite of the hand. So it seems like it's a lot to track, but I got to tell you, when you're coming back from a place that hasn't been pleasant for you and that you haven't been available to yourself in a long time, it's worth tracking. It's worth it. You do it. You got this, right? Okay. All right, Miss Heather, we have time for 2 more.
Just wanted to suggest a title because I'll forget later to send it to you. Yeah, Swing for Power.
Oh, swing for power. I like it. Can I use it?
Please.
Okay. All right. Swing for power. Access that center of mass.
Very
great. All right. Anyone else tonight? Okay. Wonderful. Thanks again for joining me. And we'll see each other next Tuesday. All right. Bye-bye.